Hello and welcome. I'm your host Will. On this channel, we've gone over the facts about multiple characters, from the brave and the heroic to the utterly bizarre. In this video, we're gonna take a look at one Halloween legend. Let's get into the facts today about Michael Myers. Let's get to it. If Michael Myers were a real person, he would probably become the subject of one of the strangest medical case studies ever recorded. There would be entire chapters in biology or medical science devoted specifically to him, because even in the world of slashers, Michael is one of the most bizarre physical phenomena imaginable. No matter how brutally someone injures this man, he keeps getting back up. Over the years, fans have proposed countless theories to explain this impossible condition. Some are scientific, some are supernatural, and others are simply attempts to make sense of a character who was deliberately created to resist explanation. John Carpenter, the filmmaker who co-created Michael Myers and directed the original Halloween, has generally rejected the idea that every aspect of Michael needs a detailed backstory. Carpenter has described him as the Shape, a force of nature and an embodiment of evil rather than an ordinary villain waiting to receive a diagnosis. Still, some of these theories are fascinating. That's why in today's video, I'm going to discuss 12 insane physiological and supernatural theories behind Michael Myers' seemingly unkillable body. So, without further ado, let's get started. His body does not register pain normally. When we talk about Michael Myers' apparent invincibility, one of the most common scientific theories involves congenital insensitivity to pain. Congenital insensitivity to pain, sometimes shortened to CIP, refers to an extremely rare group of inherited neurological conditions in which a person cannot perceive physical pain normally. People with this condition can suffer burns, fractures, deep cuts, and internal injuries without experiencing the warning signals that would force most people to stop moving. That sounds remarkably similar to Michael. In the original Halloween from 1978, Laurie Strode stabs him in the neck with a knitting needle. He collapses temporarily, but soon recovers. She later strikes him in the eye with a wire hanger and then stabs him in the torso with his own knife. Michael falls again, but while Laurie believes the danger has passed, he slowly sits upright behind her in one of the most iconic shots in horror history. Dr. Loomis later fires 6 rounds at Michael, sending him through a balcony railing and onto the ground below. When Loomis looks down again, Michael is gone. This would suggest that Michael experiences pain differently from an ordinary human being. However, congenital insensitivity to pain cannot explain his survival. People with CIP are not invulnerable. In fact, the inability to feel pain is incredibly dangerous because pain normally warns us about injuries, infections, burns, and internal damage. A person with CIP could continue walking on a shattered bone or fail to notice life-threatening blood loss. Michael may not react normally to pain, but his body also survives damage that should physically disable or kill him. So congenital insensitivity to pain might explain his silence, but it cannot explain why his organs keep functioning. He possesses strength beyond a normal human being. I don't necessarily believe that Michael is an entirely cosmic creature, but his physical strength regularly exceeds what we would expect from an ordinary man. One early example appears in the original Halloween. Michael removes the tombstone from his sister Judith's grave and carries it into the Wallace house, where he uses it as part of a disturbing display around Annie's body. The movie never tells us exactly how much the tombstone weighs, but a large stone grave marker would be extraordinarily difficult for one person to remove, transport, and position without tools or assistance. And that's only the beginning. Across the franchise, Michael lifts fully grown adults off the ground, sometimes with one hand. He pins people to walls using knives. He crushes skulls. He snaps necks, he tears through doors and withstands groups of people trying to restrain him. In Halloween from 2018, Michael crushes Dr. Sartain's head with one forceful stomp. Then, in Halloween Kill, the residents of Haddonfield surround him. Karen has already stabbed him with a pitchfork and removed his mask. Tommy Doyle's mob attacks him with firearms, blunt weapons, and knives. Michael is beaten and knocked to the ground. Karen stabs him in the back and leaves him lying in the street. For a moment, the townspeople believe they have finally killed him. Then Michael rises and begins slaughtering them one by one. He kills Tommy using Tommy's own wooden club before returning to the Myers house and murdering Karen. This scene does not give us a biological explanation, but it clearly presents Michael as something stronger and more resilient than an ordinary human being. His size changes because the shape is bigger than one actor. Michael Myers has several consistent characteristics. He remains silent, he wears a pale mask, he stalks rather than runs, and he usually kills at close range. What has never remained completely consistent is his physical size. In the original 78 movie, adult Michael was played mainly by Nick Castle, who stands around 5 feet 10 inches. Castle's Michael was relatively slim and moved with an almost ghost-like quality. In Rob Zombie's 2 movies, Michael was played by Tyler May, who stands approximately 6 feet 8 inches tall. That version of Michael was enormous, muscular, and physically intimidating even before he attacked anyone. Other actors brought different heights, builds, and styles to the role. James Jude Courtney, for example, gave the 2018 timeline's Michael a strong but aged physical presence. These changes are not evidence that Michael possesses an in-universe ability to alter his height. They happen because different actors played the role across multiple timelines and productions. But the inconsistency accidentally adds something to the mythology. Michael is not usually called the Shape because he literally changes shape. He is called the Shape because he is designed to appear less like a fully defined person and more like an empty human outline. Different actors can step behind the mask while the idea remains recognizable. Michael's body changes, the shape remains. Bullets enter his body, but they rarely stop him. Michael Myers began feeling inhuman during the original movie's final confrontation. By the time Dr. Loomis arrived, Michael had already been stabbed several times. Loomis then fired 6 rounds from his revolver. Michael was struck, stumbled backwards, broke through the balcony railing, and fell to the ground. These bullets did not bounce off him. Michael is not biologically bulletproof. The shots penetrated and injured him. The disturbing part is that they failed to keep him down. In Halloween 2, which continues the same night, Michael keeps moving despite the gunshot wounds, stab wounds, and fall he sustained during the first film. He's later shot again. From a medical perspective, multiple gunshot wounds to the torso could damage major blood vessels, lungs, the liver, intestines, kidneys, or spine. Even when bullets don't immediately kill someone, blood loss and organ failure can become fatal very quickly. Yet Michael does not appear to require surgery, transfusions, or even basic medical treatment. He simply continues hunting. The franchise rarely explains what is happening inside his body. Does he heal rapidly? Do his organs function differently? Is the supernatural element protecting him? Or is the audience simply supposed to accept that ordinary physical rules become unreliable whenever the Shape appears? That ambiguity is more frightening than a clean explanation. The curse of Thorn turned him into a vessel. John Carpenter did not create Michael with a detailed curse mythology. However, one branch of the franchise eventually attempted to explain his killings through the curse of Thorn. This storyline belongs to the continuity formed mainly by Halloween 4, 5, and Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. In that mythology, Thorn is an ancient symbol associated with ritual sacrifice. A person marked by Thorn is compelled to murder members of their own family. Michael was not described simply as an infant raised by an ancient druid sect. Instead, the 6th film connects him to a conspiracy involving the cult of Thorn, whose members believe that controlling his evil can protect or benefit their community. The theatrical and producer's cuts present parts of this mythology differently, making the explanation confusing even within the same movie. Still, the central idea is that Michael is more than an ordinary killer. His body and mind have become connected to a supernatural force that drives him to eliminate his bloodline. Under that interpretation, injuries fail to stop Michael because his body is functioning as the instrument of something ancient and evil. But the Thorn explanation is not universal canon. Halloween H2O ignored that storyline. The Rob Zombie movies created a separate continuity. The 2018 trilogy connected directly from the original 78 movie and discarded all the earlier sequels. So the Curse of Thorn is one possible explanation for one version of Michael, but it's not the final answer for the entire franchise. Falling from heights barely slows him down. Falling from a balcony became one of the most recognizable visual motifs associated with Michael Myers. The original film created the definitive version. After Loomis shoots Michael, he falls backwards from the 2nd floor of the Doyle house. Loomis looks down and sees Michael lying on the lawn. A few seconds later, the body is gone. That disappearance became the final proof that Michael was no longer behaving like an ordinary wounded man. However, the original script overstated how often this exact event occurs. Halloween 2 continues immediately after the original fall, but Michael does not simply repeat another incidental balcony fall as part of its climax. Halloween H2O includes a confrontation in which Laurie attacks Michael and sends him falling from an elevated area at the school. Rob Zombie's 2007 Halloween also recreates imagery involving Michael and Laurie falling from the Myers house near the climax. These incidents would cause serious injuries in real life. A second-story fall can produce fractured limbs, spinal trauma, head injuries, internal bleeding, or broken limbs. Michael repeatedly responds as though gravity is only a temporary inconvenience. But the balcony fall is most powerful when used as a callback to the original. It reminds the audience that knocking Michael down has never meant the same thing as stopping him. Even fire cannot reliably destroy him. Fire is one of the most physically destructive forces a human body can encounter. Severe burns can destroy skin, muscle, blood vessels, eyes, lungs, and internal organs. Michael survives even that. The clearest example occurs at the end of Halloween 2. Laurie shoots Michael in both eyes, apparently blinding him. Dr. Loomis then fills the hospital operating room with oxygen and ether before igniting the room. The explosion engulfs Michael and Loomis. Michael walks out of the flames with his entire body burning. For several seconds, he continues moving toward Laurie before finally collapsing. The theatrical ending strongly suggests that he is dead. Halloween 4 later reveals that he survived, but he spent years in a coma and remained badly scarred. So the fire did affect him. It blinded, burned, and incapacitated him. It simply did not kill him permanently within that continuity. The 2018 film also ends with Laurie, Karen, and Allison trapping Michael inside a burning house. Halloween Kills reveals that firefighters unintentionally rescue him while responding to the blaze. Once again, Michael emerges from the fire and begins killing. The franchise never establishes that he is completely fireproof. It establishes something worse. Even the injuries that should kill him may only delay him. Killing appears to reawaken his strength. Halloween Kills introduces one of the strangest interpretations of Michael's power. Laurie says that the more Michael kills, the more he transcends. This is not presented as a proven medical fact. Laurie is injured, traumatized, and trying to understand something that has haunted her for decades. Her speech represents her interpretation of Michael as an evil force becoming more powerful through fear and murder. Halloween Ends takes that idea in an even more physical direction. 4 years after the events of Halloween Kills, Michael is hiding beneath Haddonfield. He appears injured, weak, and elderly. His posture is hunched. His movements are slow. Corey Cunningham eventually brings police officer Doug Mullaney into the sewer. Michael attacks Doug but initially struggles. After killing him, Michael's body visibly trembles and straightens. For a moment, he appears stronger and more alert. The film strongly suggests that committing murder rejuvenates him, but it never gives us a scientific explanation. We don't know whether killing literally heals his cells, restores supernatural energy, or simply awakens the violent instinct that keeps him moving. The scene is intentionally ambiguous, so it is fair to say that murder appears to energize Michael in Halloween Ends. It would be too strong to claim that the movie proves a confirmed biological healing system. His mind does not behave like a normal killer's. Michael is often casually described as a psychopath, but the film resists giving him one clear psychiatric diagnosis. Dr. Loomis spent 15 years observing Michael after he murdered Judith at the age of 6. Loomis eventually concluded that he was looking at something beyond ordinary mental illness. He describes meeting a child with a blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes. The devil's eyes. This is not a clinical diagnosis. It is Loomis explaining that he came to view Michael as pure evil rather than a patient he could understand or rehabilitate. It would also be inaccurate to say that psychopaths do not possess minds or emotions. Psychopathy is associated with traits including shallow affect, lack of empathy, manipulation, impulsivity, and antisocial behavior. It does not mean a person has no thoughts, motives, or desires. Michael is unusual because the films conceal his motive. He does not consistently kill for money, sexual gratification, revenge, recognition, or social status. He rarely speaks. He doesn't explain himself. He sometimes watches victims with curiosity, stages their bodies, and displays a disturbing sense of theatricality, but the audience is never allowed to enter his mind. Carpenter compared Michael's function to an elemental force or predatory presence. He is frightening because he has the body of a human being without offering the understandable psychology audiences expect from one. His stamina has no clearly defined limit. Michael's stamina may be almost as frightening as his durability. He spends entire nights stalking victims, entering houses, moving bodies, attacking people, surviving injuries, and traveling across Haddonfield. He rarely stops to eat, drink, rest, or treat his wounds. He moves slowly, but that slow pace is deceptive. Walking instead of sprinting allows a pursuer to conserve energy. Michael also chooses when to attack, often appearing only after he has cornered or exhausted his victim. But physical efficiency alone cannot explain everything. Blood loss, burns, fractures, and gunshot wounds should rapidly reduce a person's strength and coordination. Michael continues operating despite all of them. Different timelines depict different limits. In the original continuity, enormous injuries eventually place him in a coma. In Halloween Ends, years of untreated damage leave him visibly weakened, so his stamina is not truly infinite. It is simply beyond anything a normal human could sustain. He can be exhausted. The horrifying part is how much punishment it takes to get him there. He learned to drive without a clear film explanation. Michael's ability to drive has confused viewers since 1978. He murdered Judith when he was 6 years old and spent the following 15 years confined at Smith's Grove Sanitarium. After escaping, he steals a station wagon and drives from Smith's Grove to Haddonfield without any visible difficulty. Loomis even asks how Michael could have learned. The film never provides a complete answer. The dialogue suggests that somebody may have given him lessons, but that possibility is never confirmed. Driving is an acquired skill. A person needs to understand steering, acceleration, braking, road positioning, and traffic behavior. It's difficult to believe Michael mastered all of that simply by instinct. The novel offers an explanation. It suggests that Michael learned by observing Loomis and other drivers during trips from the institution to court hearings. That is possible, especially if he had been quietly watching and memorizing their actions for years. But the novelization is not identical to the film's continuity. Within the original movie itself, Michael's ability to drive remains another unexplained detail, and that may be the point. Every question about Michael produces another blank space. How did he learn to drive? How did he move the tombstone? How did he escape after being shot? The film refuses to answer because an unexplained shape is more frightening than a carefully documented patient. He survives because the franchise refuses to let him stay dead. The most realistic explanation for Michael's survival has nothing to do with medicine or supernatural curses. He is one of the most valuable characters in horror history. Producer Mustafa Akkad maintained significant control over the Halloween franchise and was famously reluctant to allow Michael Myers to be permanently killed. Jamie Lee Curtis later described being told during the development of Halloween H2O that contractual restrictions meant Michael could not simply die and remain dead. That commercial rule helped shape the movies. Halloween H2O ends with Laurie apparently decapitating Michael. Halloween Resurrection then reveals that she actually killed a paramedic whose clothes and mask Michael had switched. This production logic made Michael increasingly difficult to destroy because every definitive ending needed a loophole for another sequel. John Carpenter's original concept also supported that flexibility. Michael was credited as the Shape and designed as something partly human but impossible to understand completely. He wasn't originally presented as a mutant, super soldier, medical experiment, or clearly possessed demon. Carpenter created ambiguity. The franchise turned that ambiguity into longevity. Halloween Ends finally gives the Michael from the 2018 timeline a physically definitive death. Laurie and Allison kill him, place his body on top of a vehicle, and lead the town to an industrial shredder. Michael's corpse is destroyed beyond any realistic possibility of recovery. That doesn't mean no future Halloween story can feature Michael Myers. It means that particular version is dead. A future film could reboot the continuity, return to another timeline, or create an entirely new version of the Shape. But it wouldn't prove that the same body regenerated after being crushed. Final thoughts. Michael Myers has existed through several separate continuities, and each one treats his body differently. The original Halloween leaves his nature deliberately ambiguous. The first sequel turns his survival into something more openly supernatural. The Thorn timeline attempts to explain him through an ancient curse. The H2O continuity ignores that mythology. Rob Zombie's films presents him as an enormous and deeply traumatized human killer with extreme durability. The 2018 trilogy once again removes the family curse and explores the possibility that Michael becomes something more than human through violence, fear, and legend. That is why no single medical theory can explain every version of him. Congenital insensitivity to pain might explain why he doesn't react normally. It cannot explain surviving gunshots and fire. Adrenaline might explain brief bursts of strength. It cannot explain decades of impossible recovery. The Curse of Thorn explains one timeline. It has no authority over the others. The best explanation is probably the one Carpenter always preferred. Michael Myers looks like a man, he moves like a man, but behind the mask, he represents something larger and less understandable. He is the Shape, a human outline occupied by evil. And on that note, this video is over. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, please leave a comment down below and tell us your favorite Michael Myers kill. Until then, goodbye, and we'll see you in the next one.